All right, so let's go back to Zion. So far, restrictions on minutes, shooting about 17 shots a night, 16 shots. He's been very, golf's about putting it in the cup. Basketball's about putting it in the cylinder. He's been pretty productive.
He's been amazing. He's been everything he was built to be. You brought me on like I'm some kind of Zion hater.
We're very critical.
I just said he looked like he wasn't in great shape, and I'm concerned about his ability to stay healthy.
By the way, Joy, did you notice Doug has it too?
What, the little throat thing?
Yeah, so you feel great, but you can't. I'm the same. Joy and I for a week.
Look amazing.
I see you have the Tacovas on.
I do have the Tacovas on. Man, do I feel good.
Those are great boots.
Huh?
So,
I feel...
Because a lot of people were saying this morning, you got to give it to Gottlieb. You got to give it to him, Cowherd, because he doesn't like Zion.
No, he's great. Like, listen, if we're judging him against John Morant's team's in the playoffs, John Morant has been great.
Yes.
So has Zion, and they've been as good as advertised. Look, I just want to make sure people understand what you're seeing. Okay, this is a little different. He's a 6'5.5" center.
Yeah.
We talked earlier this week about Houston and what they're doing with small ball, okay, and trying to kind of change it. But P.J. Tucker is shooting threes. That's how they open up the floor.
Right.
You got to take that first game where he made 4 threes and scored 17
that's not who
points.
He is.
He hasn't made a 3 since.
Right.
He is just too explosive for any of these big guys, Steven Adams, to contain him. Okay, and he's too strong for anybody his size to guard him.
Right.
So he's a freak of nature. But I'm still concerned. I had an NFL guy texting me. He went to Zion's game, and he said, like, he looks really thick. I was like, that's what he looks. He looks like a football player playing basketball.
Oh, he doesn't even look like the other players.
Yeah, look, am I still concerned about his weight and the wear and tear on his body? Absolutely. But I told you that this is what he was going to be, a small ball center, a power forward.
But he is very productive. I mean, absurdly productive.
Why wouldn't he be? And the reason that he fits with this team, okay, the reason that I liked him initially is this is how he played at Duke. He wasn't the focal point of what they did, and he was still productive. R.J. Barrett had the ball a bunch. On this team, now Brandon Ingram didn't play last night, but Brandon Ingram is the go-to guy.
Yes.
He's having a great season.
Terrific
statistically.
Year. Yeah.
Okay, they're not having a great season, wins and losses. You got Drew Holiday, who's a dominant ball handler and a very good player. You have Lonzo Ball, who is a great fit for Zion because
shooting better, by the way.
Shooting better, but he can throw it to the rim from anywhere, and Zion just explodes quicker and better than anybody else. He just jumps over people.
Yeah.
So he's tremendous. And I think there's a little bit of, I said this on Undisputed, Lamar Jackson, in that he's doing something he's more explosive than anyone we've seen at that position before. I think there's going to be an adjustment as people are trying to figure out how to guard him, who to match up with, how to understand what they're doing. They didn't win last night as well. But look, he's as good as advertised. He has to improve his shooting. He has to continue to improve his fitness. And if he does so, he'll be a superstar to match up with his superstar off-the-court status.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I was saying this in my opening rant today, I see it with Tua, I saw it with Russell Wilson, I see it with Zion. When I see what I would call an otherworldly dynamic, Russell Wilson's escapability, I hadn't seen anybody since Steve Young. It just, in little tiny spaces, he would move around. It wasn't Michael Vick running, it was just finding time. Tua's accuracy on one leg is insane. It is breeze. And then when I see Zion, his energy and explosiveness.
Well,
the second thing I want, though, because John Wall had otherworldly speed. The second thing I always look for is self-awareness. Can you be coached?
Yes.
Westbrook can't.
There's a bunch of everything is coming together perfectly. Okay, can he be coached? Remember, he didn't grow up in L.A., okay, in Chicago, in New York, where all the shoe companies are throwing money at him when he's 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, right? Yeah. Because if you grew up in Southern California, you remember the name Shea Cotton. Yeah. Okay, Shea Cotton was Zion and LeBron before. He's a cover of Sports Illustrated.
UNLV went after him.
He ended up going to Alabama. He averaged 17 a game. Never made it in the NBA. But part of he was always a superstar, so he couldn't play off the basketball. He couldn't just find a way to fight. He didn't have the grittiness, the toughness. He didn't have the self-awareness. Whereas Zion just goes and plays. He's okay being second, third, fourth fiddle. He doesn't know any better. He hasn't been the guy on the main court in Vegas at the AAU tournament his entire life. Did he have that big game against Was it one of the Ball brothers a couple years ago? Yeah. But that wasn't until he was a rising senior. So because he wasn't lusted over when he was 12, 13, 14 years old, there's a certain kind of earnestness to him.
Yeah.
The other part to it, though, is the timing of when he got into the NBA. Okay, a lot like LeBron. LeBron has benefited from being great, but also the timing of we took hand checks out, and now he can play downhill. He's just bigger, stronger than anybody
and we
else.
also have a European league, which is a more skilled big man without the trunk.
Right, which I think hurts John Wall, okay, because these point guards have become more about skill. Damian Lillard is having a better career, even though he's probably not a better player than John Wall.
But a better shooter.
Because he's so much better shooter, and he has unlimited range, and that changes the dynamic of what they do and how they guard him. Whereas you take Zion comes into the NBA in the 80s, and or 90s, and he has to be Charles Barkley. Still great player, okay? Now you're matching him up with either centers who are rim protectors, and they're just not strong enough or quick enough, okay? Or you're matching him up with PJ Tucker, who he's bigger than.
Yes.
He's bigger and stronger than. Or Draymond Green, who's now in his 30s, and he's just more explosiveness. So you open up the lane, and you unleash him, and then Drew Holiday might not be one of the top 10 passers in the NBA, but if he's your two guard and Lonzo Ball is your point guard, you have the best passing tandem of guards in the NBA. You combine their passing with his explosiveness and ability to find a crease in the defense, and it is the perfect timing, the perfect spot, and in just a small sample size of 10 games, good as advertised.
Yeah, it is interesting. When I grew up, this is in the 70s, there was a baseball player named Dave Kingman.
Sure.
Dave Kingman today would get
amazing.
$400 million.
Struck out 200 times.
All he did, Joy, was hit bombs and strike out. But that was in an era when striking out was a weakness. So he was kind of a bizarre, unique, kind of he was always kind of, you rolled your eyes at Dave Kingman. Today, he would be Bryce Harper.
Right.
Nobody cared. And so there is something to be said about the game moved into Steph and away from Russell Westbrook.
Right, Steph, and now you're seeing Trae Young, right?
It's moved right into his style.
Right, when you have skill, it's a skill-based game for the guards, and then if you're a big guy, you don't have to. You remember Derek Williams? He's from La Mirada High School, just down the street from here.
Yes.
Okay, Derek Williams played at Arizona, number 2 pick of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Okay, when he came out, he was playing 4 and 5 at Arizona. He had to become a guard. It was impossible. He's had an up and down NBA career. I think he's playing overseas now. Last year, a cup of coffee, a couple teams, the Lakers even in the NBA. Okay, if he came out now, he wouldn't have to change positions. He'd just be a 4 and a small ball 5. Sometimes it's about timing of when you're born, a little bit of luck, which allows you to see your athletic greatness.
John Elway and Eli Manning had the guts, and they also had their dad willing to be a villain. We're not playing for your team. We're not playing for the Colts. We're not playing for the Chargers. Cincinnati's got an 84-year-old owner who also considers himself the GM. They have the smallest scouting department. Carson Palmer said during Super Bowl week, they're not committed to winning. You're Joe Burrow. Do you have the guts? Do you and your dad have the guts to say, we're out?
I do not. And I think if all things were equal, if he wasn't from Ohio, dad wasn't a football coach, if it wasn't just perfectly set up, I understand that the Bengals are different than any organization in football.
They're just a boring version of Cleveland. They're totally dysfunctional.
I don't think they're Cleveland because they used to be the Bungles, and then Marvin Lewis never got the credit he deserved. Right? There were some things that went bump in the night. The Vontaze Perfect. He
stabilized them.
He did. He made them a playoff team.
Yeah.
And I having a good relationship with Carson, I know why he chose to retire rather than play for the Bengals. He signed the biggest contract in the NFL. They made him promises. They promised this, they promised that, and they didn't deliver on any of them. And he's like, what is really the point here of putting myself out there? But for Joe Burrow, you go and play. Look, the organization still could have A.J. Green. Okay, they have Joe Mixon. Last year's first-round pick was a lineman who got hurt, didn't play. You can rebuild this thing. I don't think he's as valuable to other franchises as he is to Cincinnati. I think it all works. I'm not sure he goes number 1 overall if he says I'm not playing for the Bengals. And by the way, while other franchises might flinch and trade him if he balks, you know who won't? The Bengals. They're not. They're holding on to that pick. They'll draft him, and if he wants to sit for an entire year, they'll let him sit for an entire year, and he won't be the number 1 pick next year. Trevor Lawrence will be the number 1 pick next year.
And Justin Fields will be the number 2 pick.
So, the idea sounds great. It sounds like, Elway did it, and Eli did it, and okay, fine. But Joe Burrow's from Ohio. He's not going to sit another year after sitting 2 years and not playing in college, then being rusty his third year when he played at LSU. That sounds really good into the microphone, but the reality is get out there, you'll get a chance to start. You do have an offensive-minded head coach, and you'll get a great opportunity with a good running back and a rebuild offensive line. I do not tell him. I tell him to go and play for the Bengals.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.